Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon Sets video. By popular demand, I am making this video about my specially defensive Mienshao that I showcased in the last couple of matches I uploaded on Pokemon Showdown. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into it. So to start things off, just to give you a brief overview of the Pokemon before we get into the set, Mienshao is a mono-fighting type Pokemon introduced in Generation 5 that possesses 3 abilities. The first being Inner Focus, which allows you to not be flinched ever. The second being Regenerator, which recovers a little bit of HP when you switch out of battle. And then the third one, being its hidden ability, is known as Reckless, which is an ability that allows you to increase the power of attacks that have recoil. And even though High Jump Kick, which in Mienshao's case is what this move will actually increase the power of, isn't technically a move that has recoil normally unless it misses. Because you will hurt yourself when you do miss, it does fall under this category, which is actually really cool and allows you to really ramp up the power of your high jump kicks on this Pokemon. Before its stats, this Pokemon has base 65 HP, 60 defense, and 60 special defense, which if you look at this objectively is really not that good. And so you're probably wondering, well, how are you even running a specially defensive Mienshao set? And I'll get into that when I get into the set, but as you can see here, this Pokemon typically should not be taking attacks that well. But thanks to the Regenerator ability, it allows it to repeatedly come in and take hits because it will be recovering HP every time it switches out. But as for its attacking and offensive stats, as you can see, it has a very, very good base physical attack of base 125, which allows it to hit really hard from the physical side. And it also has a really good special attack with base 95, meaning it can actually run some special moves effectively as well. And then lastly, it has a base 105 speed, which is very fast, but there are also quite a few things that do outspeed it, which does make this Pokemon a little bit more difficult to use as a sweeper or something like that, just because there are quite a few things that, have base 108 or base 110 speed or even higher than that can outspeed Mienshao and take it out. So there's just a couple things to make note of with this Pokemon before we get into the set, so let's just jump right into the moves, the ability, and everything about it right now. So for this set, we're going to start off by giving Mienshao a Jolly Nature to increase its speed but lower its special attack. And for the ability, we're going to be going with Regenerator to allow us to recover HP every single time we switch out and keep this Pokemon at a healthy amount of HP throughout the whole battle. As for the EVs, we're going to put 40 points into its HP stat, 216 EVs into its special defense, and then 252 EVs into its speed to give it its best special bulk possible, and also its max speed to allow this Pokemon to still effectively be a fast and powerful attacker. And for the item, we're also going to be using the Assault Vest item, which will increase your special defense by 1.5 at all times. So if you're wondering kind of what stat this gives you, you have a base 315 special defense with the special defense EVs and the Assault Vest taken into account, which allows this Pokemon to be fairly bulky. And you might be wondering, well, how did I even come up with this idea? And one of the main reasons why I thought of this was because I really wanted to see if I could come up with an offensive Pokemon that could repeatedly switch into attacks and threaten opponents out, and even, in some cases, take out the Pokemon that is using these powerful special moves. And I realized that because of the Regenerator ability, and because of just Mienshao's naturally high attacking stat, it really doesn't need to invest much into its attack to still effectively be a physical sweeper, or just a physical powerhouse in this case. So I could focus a lot on its defense and allow it to switch into a variety of moves. But for the moves that we're going to go with on this set, the first one is going to be High Jump Kick to be your main powerful fighting type move. And thankfully, because of the Regenerator ability, even if we do miss High Jump Kick, we have a chance to recover that HP back every time we switch out, which is always a really good thing and allows this move to be used a little bit more recklessly than normal, because typically when you're actually using the ability Reckless, you can't get that HP back. So if you do just go for a High Jump Kick and your opponent switches into a Ghost, not the worst thing in the world on this set. But to deal with those ghosts, if you do predict a switch or something like that, we are also packing Knockoff on this set to allow you to hit them super effectively, and also just get rid of items and deal a lot of damage, because this move is just ridiculously powerful in 6th gen. But along with that, we're also going to be running Poison Jab as a way to have some more type coverage. This will actually allow you to hit fairies super effectively, which is really nice, and also has that chance to poison them. Poison any Pokemon actually that you switch in. So if you know that High Jump Kick might not be effective or something, and you may have already knocked off an item on a Pokemon, going for Poison Jab isn't a bad deal, because that means you could objectively get a poison status on them and decrease their HP even more. So there's a lot of utility built into this set because of the moves. If you wanted to use this Pokemon in potentially another tier or something like that, where it might be able to effectively make use of this specially defensive set, you might want to swap out Poison Jab maybe for like Hidden Power Ice or something like that, which might actually work really well. You might have to change up the nature a bit, but if you want this Pokemon maybe to take down like a Landorus or a Gliscor or something like that, you can definitely mess around with the moves a little bit in this third slot. But for the last slot, I'm also going to throw U-Turn on here because it works really well with Regenerator, allows you to scout, and it also can deal a pretty good amount of damage to any Pokemon weak to Bug. So it allows you to be very versatile in what you can do with this Pokemon, even if you just switch it in for the purposes of getting HP back from Regenerator, and then switching back out to get even more HP back to allow it to then take another special hit. This Pokemon has a lot of utility built into it, and also is still very powerful. So the first two calculations are going to be based off of Hydreigon, and I know the writing is a little bit difficult to see because Mienshao is in the background blocking it, but that's okay. But a 252 special attack Hydreigon, Draco Meteor, so this would be like your scarfed Hydreigon, or maybe like some type of mixed Hydreigon that isn't running like a Life Orb or Choice Specs or anything like that, will do between 54.8% damage and 65.1% damage to this Mienshao, which effectively means that if you switch in to a Draco Meteor from Hydreigon, you can live it, and then after the special attack drop, live a second one, and then take it out with High Jump Kick, which is a really cool thing. And this is like, you know, your scarfed Hydreigon. However, if you're thinking, okay, what if I'm up against a more powerful Hydreigon that wants to drop a Draco Meteor? Well, a 252 special attack modest Hydreigon with a Life Orb, Draco Meteor still does 78.2% and 92.8% damage to you. So even if Stealth Rocker is on the field, you can switch into this and live, and because it's Specs instead of Scarf, you will then outspeed it. Life Orb instead of Scarf, you'll then outspeed it and then just kill it with High Jump Kick. So that's that with Hydreigon, and that's one of the most, you know, common special attackers that you run into in UU, so that's a really cool thing. Up next, if you're thinking about, well, what about Chandelure? A 252 special attack Choice Specs Chandelure, so there's a timid Chandelure using Fire Blast, will also still do around the same amount of damage, 78.2 to 92.1% of your damage, meaning that you can then switch into that and also potentially take it out with a knockoff on the following turn, but this is only if Stealth Rock is up, because you, again, aren't investing in your special attack, but you should try to get that up as much as possible, and Mienshao would definitely benefit from that in this case. In the case of a scarfed Mienshao, it will do quite a bit less, but you will also be able to identify that and then know that it's locked in and maybe switch out to something else on your team. But either way, it's still safe switching Mienshao into it, which is actually a really cool thing to think about. And Shadow Ball actually does less on a scarf set, to the point where you can actually live two of them and potentially take it out with a knockoff, again, if it took damage from Stealth Rock upon entry. As for Porygon Z, another very powerful special attacker, this is a modest Life Orbed Adaptability Tri-Attack, does between 68.3 and 81.4%, so even less than the other two Pokemon we just talked about before. And that's actually really, really significant because Porygon Z can typically run a variety of sets. If you're wondering, well, how much will a Specs one do? A Specs one still won't kill you after Stealth Rock damage that you take as well, so just to throw that out there. But one of the really common threatening Porygon Z sets is like a double setup one where they run Agility and Nasty Plot. So if they Nasty Plot up and you switch into this, you can just kill it because you're going to outspeed it and High Jump Kick it. If they Agility and then try to, you know, take you out in the following turn, you'll live it because then they didn't get the chance to Nasty Plot, and then you can take it out with a High Jump Kick. So that's really cool too. As for, you know, a more defensive Pokemon that you will typically run into in UU, Florges, a Moonblast from Florges will do 59.7 to 71.1% to you, so it won't kill you at all. And if you are able to switch in Mienshao safely, meaning like after something dies, bring in Mienshao on Florges, you can objectively 2-hit KO it depending on Florges' moves or EV spread, and chances are Florges will just click Moonblast anyway, won't even think about like Wish or something like that. Because they're just like, oh, I can just take out Mienshao normally, but with this set, they won't be able to. So keep that in mind as you're kind of going through this. If you are objectively able to switch in a Mienshao safely onto this, you can actually take a Moonblast and then kill it in 2 turns, which is really cool. As for Suicune, which is probably the most commonly seen Pokemon in UU, if you like really screwed up and let it get to +6, a Scald won't even kill you, which is a really cool thing. Take a look at that. It will do at max 99.2% potentially. So you can actually live a +6 Scald from a Suicune that's not invested in special attack if it's running like the standard Crocoon set or whatever. Now chances are you're probably going to get burned anyway because that's just how Scald works. But you can live it, and potentially if it's at a decent range of health, high jump kick it twice, which is kind of cool. If like you switch into it safely on like a Calm Mind or something, you can high jump kick twice. It'll do maybe like 50% to it, because again we're not invested in special attack, and that Suicune would be invested fully in defense. But it is something to think about. And then lastly, my favorite calculation, a Mega Pidgeot with Hurricane has a chance to not kill you if it gets minimum damage. So that's just one really fun thing to think about. Why would you switch into it? I don't know, but hey, if you ever wanted to risk it, you could potentially do it. But anyways, so that's how well this Pokemon can take hits. It's really awesome. You're able to get in and out of a lot of situations, and take advantage of the Regenerator ability a lot. So that's it, everybody. And as always, take care, goodbye, and I'll see you next time.